welcome. Now, after spending some time exploring the 7800, I thought why not move on to the Atari 800 and explore that a little bit. Do check out PCBWay. They do high quality custom PCBs, single and double-sided, as well as both surface mounted and through-hole assembly. I'm actually thinking about getting our SidBox 5 assembled with them once we've finished our PCB design. They have a very fast delivery service, so you will get your PCB delivered to you in no time. Now let's move over to the workbench where Neelix already waits for us. Beep! Thank you. Goof. I'm gonna start filming now. Don't you start claiming the workbench. Yeah? Okay, so today we are exploring the Atari 800 and all it has to offer. Now thankfully when I got this thing, it was in pretty good condition and there was nothing really wrong with it. It even came with the basic computer language. It all came with basic. Anyway, this thing feels like it's built like a tank. You've got that metal in there. The shielding is like amazing. We're gonna go inside it, yes, because, you know, curious to see what's inside it. The keyboard is absolutely amazing. It kind of reminds you of the early Commodore 64 bread bin or bread box and the VIC-20. Actual layout of it, the keyboard layout of it. But the keys just feel so much more nicer, to be honest. This is one thing which I notice about computers, if they are, you know, easy to type on, if they're very comfortable. The keyboard on this is absolutely amazing. I have to realize it feels good typing on it. One thing I've noticed about this is that it does have 4 joystick controllers, which so it clearly had games in mind. And you know, I don't think many of the games utilize this. It's only like a handful, I think it's like few, like 3 or 4 or something like this, which is a shame. Because, you know, this is actually, you don't see that often. Now, it has the left cartridge and right cartridge. I think the left cartridge, of course, is the program cartridge, whether it's, you know, basic or it's, you know, something else like, you know, a game or like this one which I have, K-razy Antics. That's just another game. You put it in the left. And the right is, I think it's for applications, you know, ROM extensions for the I'm not sure if it was ever used. Did any of you had one of these ever use that? Because the ones which on the left, I think that's like applications, packages, whatever, and these are like extensions, like extra files, so forth. But yeah, as far as I know, that is. So let's start opening this out and getting to know it. Okay, so opening this out, let's have a look. Oops, what you doing? Okay, he's found something under there. He wants to see what's inside it. Do you? Wow, you really want to explore this thing. You goof. Oi! Don't eat my Atari. Okay. Now, mister, I cannot. You goof. Leave me alone. You goof bread. Leave me alone. I want to open this up and explore it. It's mine. It's mine, not yours. Beep. So I don't know if he's distracted with something else. Boop. Let's get this out. No, not good idea. Putting him near him. Put him in the magnetic dish. Right, before he comes back and starts trying to dominate the desk, let's get this thing open and show you around quickly. Because this part here, you don't need to unscrew it to take it off, is the memory. So you got 10K of ROM here, and you got 16K, well 3 16Ks, totaling to 48K. Okay, bottom part is off. Unscrew some standoffs. This one's already unscrewed. So this has been opened clearly. Not by me. The inside's actually in, fairly good condition. There's no dust or anything like this. I think this has already been had a restoration on it, which is good. So capacitor here. There's 2 LEDs there. Capacitors here. I'm gonna have to get a new set of them. Same with these. It's got a full bridge rectifier there. So yeah. That explains the AC. The actual adapter is AC. I'm not sure why people did that. I guess to get the computer to detect the mains frequency so that it can run at that, whether it's 50 Hz or 60 Hz. But yeah, overall this actually looks like in really good condition. Doesn't really need anything done with it. Okay, so a little about the Atari 800. So just like the Commodore 64, the Atari 800 has a 6502 CPU. I believe it's 6502B. However, it's clocked at 1.77 MHz in PAL and 1.79 MHz in NTSC. So the CPU actually runs faster than the C64, which is clocked at 0.98 MHz in PAL and 1 MHz in NTSC. One thing I like about this is that all the memory chips are socketed. I think that's what electronics should be like. All the memory chips are socketed so that you don't need to kind of like, if something goes wrong on one of them, you just take the chip out, replace it really easily without actually, desoldering it from the board. The Poki deals with sound. It's one of my favorite sound chips after Amiga's Paula and Commodore's SID. For the graphics itself, the Atari 800 uses the CTIA, which basically is the successor to the TIA, which you'll find in the 2600. It has a DMA, which is used by the ANTIC chip, or the Alphanumeric Television Interface Controller. And this is for processing graphics instructions. The CTIA was later replaced by the GTIA, which I believe allows more colors on the screen and different screen modes. Just like the Commodore 64, the Atari 800 has a Luma and Chroma video output, which is essentially what was later known as S-Video. Look at the shielding on this thing. Shielding on this thing is done properly. It's like proper shielding. There's none of this tinfoil stuff, which this thin stuff which you find in other computers. I have to say, Atari computers, from what I've seen, even the 2600, built really well. I mean, look at this. It's like solid metal. I mean, come on. You can't get better than that. Alright, let's have a look at what this dude has inside. There's actually not much to it if you consider, taking it out and seeing it. I mean, this one's just like the ports and some of the controls, the buttons, ports, and the power supply. That's all this part is. This part's where all the heart of it is, the heart of it and the brain of it. Because this thing here is the CPU card. Let me try and take that out. There we go. So this is the Atari 800, totally taken apart, as much as it can be. And you will see here on the CPU board, these are a little difficult to identify. If I'm correct, this one here is the CPU, the 6502. This one here is the ANTIC, and this one here is the CTIA, which is on these two other graphic chips, the custom chips. But the actual markings on them, they don't indicate what they are. It just feels very custom. Now this one is the only one which I recognize when I see the markings. It's a MOS 6520, which is a PIA chip, a peripheral interface adapter, and I'm thinking that's just for the peripherals and everything. Noticed here? It's heat. You seem to give off a lot of heat here. And just like the Commodore 64, there are a few ways of loading data onto the Atari 800. The primary way seeming to be cartridges. There was tape loading, but apparently it was pretty unstable. I'm figuring people just avoided it. There's also loading via floppy disks, but I'm not sure how common it was. With the Commodore 64, I know that floppy loading was more common in the US, whereas in Europe it was more cassette. If there's anyone watching this who was an Atari 800 or an Atari 8-bit user, could you please comment below and let me know what medium was commonly used in your region or overall? And do let me know what was commonly used amongst yourself and your friends, you know, back then and why. I'm actually quite curious about this. One thing I find quite interesting about the Atari 800 in comparison with the Commodore 64 is that it was released quite a few years before. It was released in 1979, whereas the C64 was released in 1982. I have to say that judging by the architecture and specifications, compared to the Commodore 64, the Atari 800 actually seems to be ahead of its time. Well, at least at the time. In the past, some of you have probably noticed me saying that the Commodore 64 sometimes feels somewhat like the Amiga, or Amiga-like in my Nostalgia Time gaming videos. And it still does remind me of the Amiga at times. However, the Atari 800 is the one that is actually related to the Amiga. So it would technically be the Amiga's true predecessor. I mean, naturally, since the custom multimedia chips were designed by J. Miner, known as the father of the Amiga. Okay, so you know when I said there's two screws missing? There actually wasn't. You have to put them here. The other two are for the case screws here. There you go. Because this, you know, screws the case onto this part, which is good because it makes it more sturdier. So, this, I have to say, Atari systems seem to be really well built. This thing's like built like a tank on the inside, and yeah. Robust system. One thing I find interesting about some retro or vintage computer enthusiasts is that some claim to be Commodore people only, who would only touch Amiga or Commodore systems, or some Atari only people out there who would only touch Atari systems and so forth. This isn't a criticism nor a rant, actually it's just an observation. Actually, I can somewhat understand it. In my teens, when I had full access to the Amiga 500, and later the Amiga 1200 and then the 600, up until 2004, 2005-ish, I wouldn't touch any other computer other than the Amiga. If I had entertained the thought, it felt awful. It felt like I was being disloyal, like cheating on my man or something like this. You know, it felt horrible. I even felt guilty playing on Crash Bandicoot games on the PlayStation, initially. Yes, that's how much I loved Amiga, and still do. So I can kind of understand why there are divisions in the community, where some people won't entertain the thought of touching anything else other than their beloved computer, whatever it may be. But looking past this now, I see so many crossovers. When you look under the hood of some of these systems, you see connections. The Commodore 64 company, you know, bringing on board the Amiga computer, which has custom chips designed by the very man who worked for Atari and designed the Atari 800's custom chips, as well as the Atari 2600's TIA chip. I don't know about you, but I find something quite beautiful about this. It sort of creates a deep, humbling bond between these very distinct systems and their following. So I'm not actually too far off when I see things from one system which remind me of another. Even though the Amiga will always be my favorite, we have too much of a history together, of course, my Amigas and I. In the more recent years, I've been exploring other systems and their history and really enjoying it. Even those which, as an Amiga and Commodore user, I would have considered as rival systems. As some of you know, what attracts me first about any computer system is how it sounds. Aside from Amiga's Paula, the Commodore 64 SID was the next sound chip that grabbed me. And once I got to know the Atari 8-bit line, the Pocky soon followed with its funky sounds. Thankfully this PVM has gotten an S video in. the Luma Chroma in. The audio also. Just the composite, we don't need that. So let's turn it on. And you see there a nice, beautiful, clean prompt screen. Anyway, let's try something. It's actually really clear. Okay, shut up. Okay. I forgot what to do on this. Oh well. Didn't do well today. Ah yeah, you have to like take over the colony. Ah! Get away from me! I have to lead them to the stupid... No! Oh, that was close. No, you stupid purple freak. I'm the white one, by the way. I think what you have to do is when you lay an egg and you die, you get respawned from the egg you laid. What you're supposed to do is supposed to kind of take over. Like I'll spawn on that, I think. There you go. Spawned from that egg. And then you kind of have to... Come on. Darn it! You ate the... Oh no. I got it. Yay, I won! I think. Next level. Many thanks to all my patrons for supporting my channel, especially to my supporters who deserve an extra special thank you. Electronscape, Rich Garbett, Axel Dominator, Starlight Minako, Cameltech, Stephen Leary, and Chris Sablinski. Do see the video descriptions below to check out my patrons' websites and YouTube channels.